They're a group of people who are obsessed with every little thing the far right talks about. And, look, I understand some of these organizations, it makes sense to track what certain extremist groups are doing. But then the media latches on and it becomes completely insane. So when the Anti-Defamation League put up a story talking about how the word Bugaloo is now far-right slang, it eventually trickles down to NPR, and we get this. Bugaloo is the new far-right slang for civil war. My response, who cares? Seriously, who cares? It's not a slur. It's not calls for anything. It's literally just a word that basically means like party or like throwdown. And for those that aren't familiar, it basically gains its popularity from Breakin' 2, Electric Bugaloo. Everybody knows the movie. And I'm reminded of that joke from Family Guy where Peter and Lois are debating each other or something like this. And Peter says something like, I once stopped an evil developer from taking over the community center. And Lois is like, that was, I don't know the guy's name, Adolfo Shabadoo from Breakin' 2, Electric Bugaloo. And that's basically where it comes from. The name is just kind of a buzzword thing for like something happening. And so I have a really funny article that kind of breaks down why Electric Bugaloo is a thing. But lo and behold, NPR has to run a segment explaining how this is the new far-right slang. And now we're at a point where just like clowns, just like milk, if the far right does it, it must be theirs. It's the weirdest thing to me. Bugaloo is a meme. That's it. People say it. People on 4chan say it too. It doesn't mean it's far right slang. It's just slang. This is the weirdest thing to me. Why they do this. They want to empower the alt-right, the far right, whatever you want to call it. No, dude. Could you imagine if they were like, we've found that people in far-right circles are posting pictures of cats. Cats are the new. It's like, yes, everyone posts pictures of cats, dude. Calm down. But you know what? You got to justify paying the bills somehow. So let's check out the story. This one here is like a 4-minute interview, so I want to show you some of it. But then I want to show you what the ADL actually wrote several months ago. I think it's really funny. So here's what the host says. Now the story about the strange journey of the word that's popular in far-right corners of the internet. The word Bugaloo. Fake story. This is a fake story, okay? There are a lot of words they say in far-right circles, and they exist in every other circle. It's the weirdest thing to me. It's like milk, like frogs, and like clowns. Not everybody who posts a milk emoji is far-right. Not everybody, and this is what they've done. 4chan knows it. And so they do it for fun because they basically have the media on puppet string. So bravo, 4chan. It's so amazing how, you know what's really funny? You want to talk about a media conspiracy? Here's my conspiracy. 4chan controls all media. I'm kidding, by the way. But they can do whatever they want. You get some dudes on this forum and they say, hey, let's say this word. And then all of a sudden the media goes nuts. The media just literally does what they want them to. It's actually quite amazing. It's like they're being moved around like chess pieces on a board. So here's this guy. He says, Bugaloo emerged as a mashup of Black and Latin American influences some 50 years later. The word is still a part of American pop culture, but with a very different meaning. It once represented a fusion of people and cultures. Now it refers to their coming apart, civil war, in some quarters, a race war. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Stop. Okay. So I've jokingly referred to the Ukraine scandal with Donald Trump as Russiagate 2, Ukrainian Bugaloo. Let me explain to you what this really is. Here on Wikipedia, we can see Breakin' 2, Electric Bugaloo. This is the movie. It's about 3 characters from Breakin'. Kelly Orlando, that's Adolfo Quinones, and Tony Turbo Ainley, who struggle to stop the demolition of a community recreation center by a developer who wants to build a shopping mall. It may be one of the most cliched 80s storylines, and that's it. And it's called Breakin' 2, Electric Bugaloo. And here's the actual source. I have this story from AV Club. I watched this on purpose, Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo, and they say this. 1984's Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo contributed precisely one thing to the cultural zeitgeist that the far more successful Breakin' hadn't already provided. A zingy subtitle that could be added to the end of virtually any sequel. To this day, children of the 80s still frequently reference, say, Saw 2 Electric Boogaloo, The Hills Have Eyes, 2 Electric Boogaloo, largely because of the built-in catchy rhyme and sheer silliness value. The gag comes up routinely and randomly Via sources from Mr. Show to Family Guy, in a recent online chat with Lord of the Rings fans, Guillermo del Toro even joked that H2 Electric Boogaloo had been rejected as a possible title for the planned second Hobbit movie. It's a joke. Everybody uses it. It is not far right, but the media loves to play this game. Don't ask me why. They love to do it. And I got to throw some shade. Look, I think the ADL isn't the worst thing in the world. I know a lot of people think they're like, evil or really, really bad. No, I think the ADL has done some good things. I don't think they're completely bad, but I think they've done a lot of really bad things. And I think in certain circumstances like this, they're just trying to justify why you should give them money, right? Look, there are real things to track. I'd like to, I look to like real journalists, people like, Jake Hanrahan, for instance, if you're not familiar. He's a reporter who's covered the far right. If I want to know what they're doing, I'll go look at what he's talking about. Because he's not going to give me some impassioned political argument about the words they use. He's going to be like, here's what they call themselves. Here's what they do. Here's where they are. And I'll say, interesting. Thanks for letting me know. When you turn to these nonprofits, like the SPLC and the ADL, they try to justify their existence by shocking you and scaring you over literally anything. Now, the reason why I say I don't think the ADL is the worst thing in the world is because there have been some things they've gotten right. So when the OK hand gesture first became like a meme because the media loves to just play this game, ADL actually came out and said, no dice. Not true. They said it was a 4chan prank and the media needs to stop playing this game because innocent people are getting swept up. And I'm like, that's great. Granted, I do think the ADL has done, kind of bad things because my understanding is they're very anti-hate speech, which results in anti-war leftists and conservatives getting banned from the internet, mostly conservatives for a variety of reasons. But now they're trying to take Bugaloo. Dude, just because someone uses a meme doesn't mean they now own the meme. Like, could you imagine if the article actually said, like, the new extremist Pokemon slang term? Because, Pokemon fans playing Pokemon Go keep calling, like, the next patch the Bugaloo or whatever. Nobody does that. This is what's really, really annoying about every single narrative in terms of radicalization and extremism. They are exaggerating literally everything. You take a look at the rabbit hole. I love this analogy, okay? You've heard about the New York Times, the rabbit hole. It's like people go on YouTube and then they start getting wrapped up in, a series of videos. And then all of a sudden they're extremists, right? Well, what really happens is that people choose to watch certain videos. They're not being, sucked into anything. And the best example, the one I love giving, is how people, like, if you were a fan of Superman, how many people do you know have become like Superman extremists? How many articles have been written about people who are obsessed with Superman? How many articles have been written about people who watch Dragon Ball Z and now are completely obsessed with Dragon Ball Z? It's just not a thing, right? And so they don't claim that new slang terms are popping up in various subcultures. It's almost exclusively about a subset of forum users who use the same slang as literally everybody else. And then all of a sudden now we're wrapped up in this, insane paranoid delusion. So you now know the origin of the word Bugaloo. I think in terms of like modern mainstream culture, Bugaloo it's about breaking to electric Boogaloo, right? The Boogaloo extremists' new slang for a coming civil war. They say it's not often an old joke evolves into a catchphrase for mass violence. But that's just what's happened this past year, when a variety of extremist and fringe movements and subcultures adopted the word Bugaloo as shorthand for a future civil war. From militia groups to white supremacists, extremists on a range of online platforms talk about and sometimes even anticipate the Bugaloo. The rise of Bugaloo and its casual acceptance of future mass violence is disturbing. Among some extremists, it may even signify an increased willingness to engage in violence. Stop. Hold on. I got to stop too. I do think it's fair to point out, yes, they do use this word this way, right? My point is not that they don't have their own slang. My point is not that they're not more likely to use it. No, I think they are. The average person isn't going around saying the Bugaloo is coming. It's just a slang term that was meant to be silly, and it was a meme that's picked up. And just because some people say it doesn't mean that it's a fringe far-right thing. I wouldn't be surprised if there were left-wing Antifa people who said the same word, because it's just a slang term for, like, a party or a throwdown. They say, moving on. They actually talk about break-in, too. This is amazing. They say Bugaloo has its roots in decades of jokes about an old movie, the 1984 breakdancing film Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. Almost from the moment the movie's released, people exploited the format of the movie's title for humorous purposes, replacing Breakin' with some other film, event, or person of their choice. These jokes included Civil War II Electric Boogaloo, references made every so often by gamers and history buffs, among others. But its most recent and most serious iteration caught on and spread very quickly, though some still use the phrase as a joke, an increasing number of people employ it with serious intent. This is where it came from. People would say Civil War II Electric Boogaloo or American Boogaloo, and Boogaloo is just a stupid word. Of course, they get to own everything. Guns rights activists threaten violence. The new usage seems to have started with gun rights activists intimating a promise of violence if the government were to come for their guns. The full phrase has been used this way before. For example, in June 2018, someone started a Reddit thread titled Civil War II Electric Boogaloo, featuring a 2012 Facebook post by Gavin Newsom, then California's lieutenant governor, telling the NRA, "We are coming for your guns." The implication made by the poster was clear, that any such effort would result in a civil war. It's not about supporting a civil war or wanting it to happen. But I think if it's fair to say, if the government says we're coming to take your guns, to violate your rights, they are starting a civil war. So here's what's really crazy. Right now in Virginia, you have all these gun rights activists, and people are acting like it's the gun rights activists who are starting things when it's literally the government starting things. Everybody's chilling, minding their own business. The new government comes in and says, we're going to, make these changes and do these things. And then people say, we're going to protest that. And now I see these tweets popping up where they say, these goons are coming out to scare us. What are you talking about? You are the ones passing the laws to ban private gun ranges and target practice stuff. So they came out in response to protest and they're abiding by the law, right? So when they say it's happening or when they say there's going to be a civil war, they're talking about what the government is doing, not their response to it. They're saying that some people will respond negatively. So they go on again, I guess. In 2019, the usage spread widely among pro-gun activists on a variety of online platforms, so much so it quickly pared down simply to Bugaloo or the Bugaloo. In August, a Twitter user warned others to buy whatever guns and ammo they wanted now, because soon the ability to do so would be severely curtailed, adding, "Button up for the Bugaloo now." The same month, someone else tweeted the hashtag Bugaloo, warning about 100 million active shooter situations when the cops tried to do a nationwide gun confiscation. I mean, I got to be honest. Again, it's not about supporting it, but we see what's going on with red flag laws. When the police show up unannounced to seize property, bad things happen. Americans will not let this happen. So I see what's going on in Virginia right now today. I think for the most part, nothing's really going to happen. I mean, I may be speaking too soon. We'll see. But I do think it's fair to point out that if the government starts enacting more heavy-handed bans on weapons, restrictions, don't be surprised when people come out and say, never going to happen. I'll tell you this, man. Someone tweeted something dumb about the founding fathers didn't envision this, and it was a bunch of dudes walking down the street, and I'm like, you're right. The founding fathers literally shot at and killed the government. That was a bit extreme, but we're Americans. That's our history. That's how our country was made. And so when you see dudes walking down the street with guns, I'm pretty sure the founding fathers had a more extreme vision of what the Second Amendment really meant. So I'll tell you this. So and the response from the guy was like, wake up, innocent lives are being lost. I'm like, listen, man, I'm right there with you to an extent. I think there is a big difference between the ease of access. See, here's what people don't understand. I think one of the things missing from the Second Amendment arguments when it comes to these silly things is the mass production. It's not just about owning it. It's about that people can own dozens. Now, I think it's fair to say the founding fathers understood technology would advance. They were looking at, new artillery and new weapons. I don't think they were morons. They actually did a very clever thing with constructing this government. But I do think we are seeing mass production on a scale we've not seen before. And it is, I don't think it's fair to talk about, people say it's full auto or semi-auto. It's no, they had that stuff being developed back then. They knew what was being used in war. They had, I could be wrong about this, but I was reading about steam Gatling guns. This stuff was not unheard of. And I think Steven credited this big thing about the technology of the day. They knew technology was advancing, right? I think that one thing that's left out, though, is the mass production, the rapid production of. I'm sure, back then, it wasn't about whether you could or couldn't. It was about whether or not they could produce them fast enough so people could have guns and they could have new ones. So here's my point. I actually think we should have Supreme Court rulings and assessments on, how we, what kind of guns people can have and things like that. The only problem is it doesn't matter what I think. The Second Amendment exists. And so long as I enjoy my rights under the Constitution, other people enjoy those rights. And if you don't like it, well, you got to ratify the Constitution. Right. So for a long time, I was kind of more leaning towards certain gun control stuff. Like my position has usually been, I think we need less restrictions, but more knowledge. You know what I mean? Like if we know who has the weapons and what weapon they have, that's better than telling them they can't have it at all. And red flag laws step over the line. I mean, if you want to take someone's weapon away from them, I think you got to serve them first. They go to court, present their arguments, and if a judge rules, then they can do that check. But right now, it's just like literally the cops show up and just, bad things happen. Anyway, this turned from a thing about Bugaloo into what's going on in Richmond. So I forgive you. So forgive me for that. I'll wrap it up. You get the point. Listen, the main point of all this is that, well, 4chan did it again. They can literally do whatever they want. A hashtag, it doesn't matter who says it or why. It becomes far right. It invariably becomes white supremacist. Like the general idea they're telling us, the ADL, NPR, and these other outlets, is that there could be something you truly love, like milk. And if a white supremacist uses it, congratulations, all instances from this point on of its use are white supremacist. Like clearly that can't be the case, right? But that's what the media keeps doing. It's because people need to justify their existence. It's because the ADL needs money. So I don't necessarily blame the ADL for telling us that people are using it this way. It's like, okay, fine. But then the media latches onto it. And now all of a sudden, they're going to go back in time, find anybody who's ever said Bugaloo and be like, aha, you're far right. Retroactively applying the game of telephone to you. That's what's going on with all this. The reality is, memes exist. People use Pepe. Katy Perry used Pepe. Oh no, and then the far right used it, therefore you can't use Pepe anymore. That's insane. That's just not the way the world works. And so long as you have these organizations digging through everything fringe communities do, and then saying, aha, this is their word. Like I was arguing with someone about the clown symbol, and they're like, nope, clowns are far right. That's the emoji. I'm like, dude, no, it isn't. The far right uses it for sure, but a lot of people use the clown symbol. Like there was some Antifa guy tweeting about Bernie Sanders and Warren who responded with honk honk. That's the far right meme. Yep, okay. No, you're nuts, man. It was something about Warren lying and then accusing Bernie of lying. You probably saw that story. And they responded with honk honk because, like, how insane is it that Warren, of all people, would accuse Bernie of lying when her whole career is based on lies over and over again? So, yeah, that was the joke. Clown world, haha. And I'm like, so how do you have a progressive like Antifa type saying that, but you're going to argue that it's a far right, meme? It's because of stuff like this. So anyway, I'll wrap it up. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. YouTube.com/Timcast. Yeah, we'll see what happens with Richmond. Thanks for hanging out.